Chapter number 13, Homeopathic Posology. By posology, from the Greek word which posor, which means how much, we mean the science of or doctrine of dosage. Small doses and homeopathy are commonly regarded as synonymous terms. The three essential elements of the system are the principle, the remedy, the dose, and the three are of equal importance. The homeopathic doctrine of dosage, like the law of cure, was based upon the discovery of the opposite action of large and small doses of medicine. The law of mutual action, the third Newtonian law of motion, action and reaction are equal and opposite. For example, opium in large doses will cause a deep sleep or narcosis, and is small doses under certain conditions will cure the same. The drugs given in tangible form and considerable quantities in what are called physiological doses. Homeopathic remedies are never used in physiological doses. Necessary to distinguish between physiological, therapeutical, and pathogenetic drugs. Physiological action of a drug is not its therapeutic or curative action. It is exactly the opposite of a curative action and is never employed in homeopathic practice for the therapeutic purpose. Therapeutic means curative, healing, alleviating a pathonometic action in never curative. The action of drug may be pathogenic, toxic, or therapeutic, curative, depending upon the size and strength of the dose, the susceptibility of the patient, and principle upon the which is given. Only the similar remedy in the smallest possible dose is capable of bringing about this highly desirable result. Infinitesimal dose will produce symptoms in certain high sensitive persons, and may of our valuable provings have been made with more or less highly potentized medicine. A physiological dose of atropine or belladonna, for example, is one sufficient to produce dilatation of the pupils. Dryness of the action of the drug is carried. The intent is to produce a direct, definite drug effect. Physiological dose allowance is made only for the difference in the age of the patient, who are roughly divided into two classes, infants and adults. Unlike the homeopathic physician, the allopathic prescriber is not trained to observe the finer, more delicate action of the drug upon the living organism. The proposition is that medicines act curatively in infinitesimal quantities when given in cases to which they are homeopathic. The development of special virtues in medicine by a peculiar process of preparation or potentization. The increased susceptibility to medicinal impression produced by disease. The selection of symptomatically similar remedy. He experimented in the reduction of his dose in order to arrive to a point where severe aggravation would not occur. He termed that latent powers of drugs were released or developed by trituration, dilution, and succussion. Finally came to a conclusion that the proper dose is always the least possible dose which will effect a cure. Choosing the potency. 5 considerations influence us in the choice of the dose: the susceptibility of the patient, the seat of the disease, the nature and intensity of the disease, the stage and duration of the disease, the previous treatment of the disease. Susceptibility of the patient. It is most important guide in selection of the dose. Susceptibility varies according to age, temperament, constitution, habits, character of the disease, and environment. The more common, similar the remedy, the more clearer and positively the symptoms of the patient take on the peculiar and characteristics form of the remedy. The greater the susceptibility of that remedy and highest the potency required. The indefatigable jar was very beautifully illustrated this point. He marks the differences between the action of the low and high potency, which consists not in their strength or weakness, but in the development of peculiarities of the remedy as we rise in the scale of potencies. Jar illustrates by a geometrical figure consisting of a number of concentric circles with radii drawn to correspond remedy in different stage of potentization. In the first to third potency, the innermost circle where the radii lies close together, similar or related remedies like arsenic, rustox, bryonia, sulfur have a great many symptoms in common. But the higher they progress in scale of potentization, the more radii recede from each other. By continual diluting and succussing, says Jhar, remedies get neither stronger nor weaker, but their individual peculiarities become more and more developed. Their sphere of action is enlarged as represented by concentric circles. Slightly modifying Jhar's advice by suggesting the finer, more peculiar, and more characteristic symptoms of the remedy appear in a case, the higher the degree of susceptibility and higher the potency. Susceptibility is modified by age. Generally speaking, susceptibility is greatest in children and young, vigorous persons and diminishes with age. Susceptibility is modified by constitution and temperament. Higher potencies are best adapted to sensitive persons of the nervous, sanguine, or choleric temperament, to intelligent intellectual persons quick to act and react, to zealous and impulsive persons. Lower potencies and larger and more frequent doses correspond better to phlegmatic individual dull of comprehension and slow to act, sluggish individuals of gross habit. Susceptibility is modified by habit and environment. It is increased by intellectual occupation, by excitement of the imagination and emotions, by sedentary occupation, by long sleep. Susceptibility are modified by pathological condition. In certain terminal condition, the power of organism to react even to the indicated homeopathic remedy may become low, that only material doses can arouse it. A common example of this is seen in valvular heart diseases, where digitalis is indicated remedy, but no effect is produced by any potency. The patient will respond, however, to tangible doses of pure tincture or a fresh infusion of digitalis, and sometimes makes a good recovery from a condition that seems hopeless. The patient was 18-year girl in the last stage of incurable heart disease. She had been under allopathic treatment for over a year, steadily growing worse. She was confined to a chair, unable to lie down or remain in bed. General edema, ascites, hydrothorax existed. Urine was almost entirely suppressed. Only about 4 ounces being passed in 24 hours. Tachycardia and dyspnea were most distressing, and death seemed imminent. The history of case revealed unmistakable calcareous symptoms. She was given a single dose of calcarea C.M. Finkel, the reaction and response of the remedy was surprising. Within 48 hours, urine began to secrete copiously. For several days, she passed from 120 to 150 ounces per day. Dropsy rapidly disappeared and she was able to lie down and sleep comfortably. Susceptibility is modified by habit and environment. People who are accustomed to long and severe labor out of doors, who sleep less and whose food is coarse, are less susceptible. The seed, character, and intensity of the disease has some bearing upon the question of the dose. Certain malignant and rapidly fatal diseases like cholera may require material doses or low potencies of the indicated. Hahnemann's famous prescription of camphor in drop doses of the strong tincture given every 5 or 10 minutes has saved thousands of lives. Repetition of the doses. The management of the remedy is regard to potency and dosage is almost as important as the selection of the remedy itself. The duration of action of the remedy, which acts varies of course with the nature and rate of progress of disease. Repeat the dose only when improvement ceases. Paragraph 249, Hahnemann gives the general rule. Perceptible and continued progress of improvement in an acute or chronic disease is a condition which, as long as it lasts, invariably counter indicates the repetition of any medicine because the beneficial effect which the medicine continues to exert is rapidly approaching its perfection. In paragraph 247 to 248, Hahnemann says these periods marked by the repetition of doses are always to be determined by the more or less acute course of the disease and by nature of the remedy employed. Effect of the remedy. The first thing to be determined is whether the remedy has acted at all or not. We find the remedy rightly chosen, we change the potency to a higher or a lower potency as circumstances may require. A remedy shows its action first by producing new symptoms, second by the disappearance of the symptoms, third by the increase or aggravation of the symptoms, fourth by the amelioration of the symptoms, fifth by change in order and direction of the symptom. By producing new symptoms, the new symptoms not related to the disease and detrimental to his welfare. Discontinuance and an antidote is demanded. A slight aggravation or intensification of the symptoms appearing quickly after the remedy as soon passing away is a good sign. A prolonged aggravation with amelioration and with progressive decline of the patient is something seen in chronic deep-seated disease as a result of overaction of a deep-acting antisoric or antisyphilitic medicine. The last appearing symptom of a disease should be the first and to disappear under action of curative remedy. The change following the administration of a remedy may be a quick, short amelioration followed by a relapse to the original and the worse condition. Von Gravel says the sole and simple question can only be what quantity of a substance is necessary in order to induce that chemical or physical counter motion in any diseased part of the organism which is equal in intensity and opposite in direction to that which is induced by the morbific cause. Infants and aged people, being of low vitality and feeble reactive powers, required low potencies for their cure. Found that the generalization was altogether too broad, the most desperate cases of croup, diphtheria, cholera infantum cured with a few drops of high potency after they have been given up to die. Curative effects of high potencies in aged as in the young when both the remedies and the potencies were indicated.